He was the last man standing. In 2011, Barry Gibb went quiet. No studio updates, no tour announcements, no interviews, nothing. Not a single sound from the last surviving Bee Gee. At first, fans assumed he was stepping back to care for Robin, who was battling cancer and fading fast. It made sense. Barry had already buried 2 brothers. Losing a third? That kind of pain, most of us can't even imagine. But then, people started to whisper. Because Barry didn't just stop performing, he disappeared, vanished from the spotlight completely. And as Robin's health declined, Barry's name slipped off the radar too. Some longtime followers began to wonder, was Barry okay? There were quiet rumors of a health scare, a collapse, a secret hospital visit in Miami, even whispers that he might have faced the same terrifying condition that killed Maurice nearly a decade earlier. But Barry said nothing. No press statement, no televised update, just silence. And when he finally reappeared, he looked thinner, quieter, older in a way that wasn't just physical. It left people asking the same haunting question: what really happened to Barry Gibb in 2011? Was he just grieving, or did he come dangerously close to joining the very brothers he was mourning? We're about to walk through the year he disappeared, what's been said, what's been confirmed, and what he's never talked about publicly. Because in 2011, Barry Gibb may have faced death and chose to survive in silence. If you grew up with the music, if the Bee Gees weren't just a sound but a part of your soul, then you're in the right place. Because here on RetroWaves, we don't just talk about what made the charts, we talk about what broke the silence, the grief, the secrets, the moments that never made it into the songs. So if you want more stories like this one, the kind they rarely told, hit that subscribe button and stick around. Because Barry Gibb's silence in 2011, it meant more than anyone realized. Before we dive into 2011, you need to understand what Barry Gibb had already lived through, because by the time that year arrived, he wasn't just a legendary songwriter, he was a man surrounded by ghosts. Let's go back. The Gibb family wasn't unfamiliar with loss. In 1988, Andy Gibb, the baby of the family, died at just 30 years old. His heart gave out after years of drug abuse and emotional collapse. He'd once been one of the biggest pop stars in the world. And then, he was gone. Barry later said he felt responsible, that maybe, if he'd reached out more, if he'd pushed harder, things could have been different. That kind of guilt doesn't go away. Then came 2003. Maurice Gibb, his bandmate, his other half, walked into a hospital in Florida with severe stomach pain. Doctors thought it was an intestinal blockage, routine, manageable. But during surgery, complications struck. Maurice went into cardiac arrest, and just like that, he was gone. No warning, no goodbye, no second chance. Barry was devastated, and more than that, he was shaken. Maurice had been the glue, the steady hand, the quiet humor behind the Bee Gees. Losing him felt like losing a part of himself. Still, Barry kept going. He and Robin tried to hold the Bee Gees' name together, but it wasn't easy. The music wasn't the same. The chemistry, the brotherhood, was fractured. And then, Robin got sick. It started slowly, digestive issues, a strange discomfort, but the news got worse with every scan. By 2010, Robin Gibb was quietly fighting liver cancer. Now, imagine being Barry. You've already buried one brother to addiction, another to a freak medical emergency, and now, the last one, the only one left, is slipping away right in front of you. Robin was fighting, no doubt about it. He kept composing, kept performing, even made televised appearances in 2011. But his weight was dropping. His voice was nearly gone. He looked like a man running out of time. And Barry? Barry went quiet. No studio updates, no tour plans, no press. He didn't even show up at the Titanic memorial concert Robin had worked so hard to finish. Now fans assumed he was just grieving, giving his brother space, staying private in the face of public loss. But others weren't so sure. Because Barry's silence wasn't just emotional, it was total. And soon, the rumors started. Was he stepping back because of grief? Or was Barry Gibb quietly fighting for his own life? It started with missed appearances, a few canceled interviews, then a no-show at a tribute event Robin had planned, then nothing. From the end of 2010 through nearly all of 2012, Barry Gibb seemed to vanish. No updates, no stage time, no studio footage, not even the casual walk-by paparazzi shots the tabloids live for. For a man who'd lived in the public eye for nearly 5 decades, the sudden silence was loud. Now many fans believed he was simply grieving. After all, Robin's health was fading fast. Barry's absence made sense. He was mourning in real time, wasn't he? But others noticed the details. This wasn't just a break from work. This was a full blackout. No personal statements, no charity events, no messages to fans, not even a formal acknowledgement of Robin's situation as it worsened. And then came the whispers. Some longtime followers on Bee Gees fan forums began trading rumors. Quietly at first, then more openly. That Barry had collapsed during a rehearsal, that he'd been rushed to a Miami hospital, privately, under a different name, to avoid attention. And that the condition he was facing was eerily similar to what killed Maurice in 2003. Now let's pause here for a moment. This part of the story, about a possible medical emergency, is not something Barry has ever confirmed publicly. There are no hospital records, no press reports, no formal statement, but it is a widely circulated belief among fans. And given Barry's known tendency to grieve in silence, it doesn't feel impossible. The timeline matches. The withdrawal was absolute. And when Barry finally did return in 2013, he looked changed, thinner, slower, visibly older, not just in the face, but in the eyes. As if he'd seen something he wasn't quite ready to talk about. Whether the health scare was real or not, one thing is certain. That year, Barry Gibb disappeared. And no one, not even his most devoted fans, knew why. While Barry remained hidden from view, Robin Gibb was walking through fire, under the spotlight. And not just any spotlight. This was the kind that caught every wrinkle, every falter, every drop in weight. By the end of 2010, Robin's health was rapidly deteriorating. He was diagnosed with liver cancer, then colon cancer, then came complications from pneumonia and a weakened immune system. And yet, he refused to disappear. He kept working, kept giving interviews, even appeared on British television in 2011, sitting on stage, barely able to speak, but smiling through the pain. It was heartbreaking. According to official reports and widely circulated interviews, Robin was committed to finishing a musical project, a classical requiem to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Titanic. He called it his legacy, a final composition for the ages. Barry was noticeably absent from the project. He didn't perform on it, didn't attend rehearsals, didn't show up at the Titanic Memorial concert in London. This fueled more speculation. Why wouldn't Barry be there for his own brother's final musical offering? Some believed it was because Barry was unwell himself. Others thought it was grief or guilt. We don't know. But what we do know, based on Barry's later interviews, is that he struggled with seeing Robin that way. I couldn't look at him and see what was happening, Barry admitted in a 2017 feature. I didn't want that to be the last image of him I carried. Their last conversation? According to Barry, it happened over the phone. He told Robin he loved him. Robin, nearly out of strength, whispered, "Sing for me." That was it. A few days later, Robin Gibb died. May 20th, 2012. Because Robin wasn't just a brother, he was Barry's last bandmate, the final harmony, the last link to a lifetime of music, loss, and shared blood. And now, he was gone too. It had been over a year since Robin passed, over 2 years since Barry Gibb had been seen on any stage. Fans wondered if he'd ever return at all. And then, In 2013 he did, but not in the way most expected. There was no flashy press conference, no tearful Oprah-style reveal, no big announcement about a comeback, just a name, the Mythology Tour, a quiet but powerful title, not a greatest hits show, not a disco revival. This wasn't about the Bee Gees brand, it was about memory, legacy, family. The Mythology Tour was Barry's personal tribute to his brothers and to everything they built together. According to tour organizers and media coverage at the time, Barry performed across Australia and the UK with a full band, but at the center of it all was his son Stephen playing guitar beside him, a Gibb bloodline, standing in the place where three had once stood. And then there was the mic stand, empty, just standing there, no words, no introduction, but everyone in the audience knew what it meant. It was for Robin. Each night, as Barry sang the classics, "To Love Somebody," "How Deep Is Your Love," "Words," he would turn slightly toward that mic stand, not every time, but often enough that it was clear he was still singing with them, or maybe for them. And the crowd? They didn't dance, they swayed, they listened, they cried, because this wasn't just a concert, it was a eulogy. Barry didn't talk much between songs. When he did, he kept it short, focused on the music, the legacy. But even from the back row, you could see it in his face, the strain, the ache, the hesitation before certain lyrics. He wasn't just performing, he was processing. And the message of the entire tour was clear. Barry Gibb hadn't just returned to the stage, he had returned to honor the brothers who couldn't. And in doing so, he kept the myth alive. Every night on tour, fans came for the classics, and Barry gave them that "Stayin' Alive," "More Than a Woman," nights on Broadway, songs that lit up dance floors for decades. But there was one song they quietly hoped for, a tender, aching melody from the Bee Gees' early 70s years. "Run to Me." It wasn't the group's biggest hit, but it was personal. So personal that some fans say it almost felt like a conversation between Barry and Robin, sung through harmony. During the Mythology Tour, requests for it poured in letters, on fan pages, even shouted from the crowd, but Barry never sang it, not once. When asked why, his answer was gentle, almost whispered. That was Robin's song, I can't do it without him. That's not speculation. It's something Barry has said in multiple interviews during and after the tour. It's one of the few things he's been openly emotional about. He said it doesn't feel right, that the song belonged to Robin as much as to the band, and that some harmonies weren't meant to be sung alone. Now, here's where things move into quieter territory. According to fans close to Barry's touring crew, people who've worked with him behind the curtain, there was a moment. This hasn't been officially confirmed by Barry himself, but it's been passed around among fans who've followed the family for decades. One night, during early rehearsals, Barry tried to sing "Run to Me." He made it through one line, and then he stopped. He reportedly turned away from the mic, put his hand to his face, and just cried. Again, this is not something you'll find in a press release, but for those who've followed Barry's journey, it doesn't sound far-fetched. Because if there's one truth we do know, it's that Barry doesn't avoid "Run to Me" because he forgot it. He avoids it because it hurts. And some songs, no matter how beautiful, were never meant to be performed solo. In 2020, Barry Gibb sat down for a rare, soul-bearing interview. He wasn't promoting a tour. He wasn't selling a greatest hits album. He was just reflecting. And for a moment, the mask slipped. He spoke softly about grief, about memory, and about the weight of being the last Gibb brother standing. But then he said something that caught everyone's attention. He talked about things he never got to say to Robin. "There are things I'll never say out loud," he admitted. "Things that stay between brothers." And that's when a new rumor was born. Among fans who'd followed the family closely, those who attended every concert, bought every rare pressing, and read every liner note, something began to circulate. That back in 2011, before anyone knew what was going on, Barry may have written a letter, a private one, to Robin. According to these long-circulating fan accounts, Barry feared he might not survive the health scare he was rumored to be facing at the time. So he put pen to paper. No camera crews, no publicist, just a piece of paper and everything he couldn't say out loud. Some believe he wrote Robin to say goodbye, to prepare him, to thank him. But the letter was never sent, because in the cruelest twist, Robin passed away first. And if the letter did exist, Barry reportedly kept it, folded, unread, tucked somewhere private in his Miami home. Now let's be clear, Barry has never confirmed the existence of a physical letter. What is confirmed is that he carried deep, unresolved emotions and regrets after Robin's death. He said as much himself. There were things I wanted to say, but I didn't, and now I have to live with that. So maybe there was a letter, or maybe it's something deeper, a memory, a song lyric never finished, a harmony left hanging in the air. Whatever it was, Barry kept it close, not for the world, but for his brother. By the time Barry stepped back on stage in 2013, something had changed. And it wasn't just in his voice. Yes, he still had that falsetto, aged, yes, but still recognizable. But now there was a weight in his movements, a softness to his eyes, a heaviness in how he held the microphone. This wasn't the Barry Gibb who strutted across 1970s stages in white suits and unbreakable swagger. This was a man who had outlived his band, his brothers, and possibly, though never confirmed, his own brush with death. And it showed. Fans who attended the Mythology tour noticed it right away. He sang the hits, yes, but he also paused. He spoke in between songs, not just to reminisce, but to remember. One night, as video footage of Robin played behind him, Barry turned slowly toward the screen. He didn't speak. He just watched, smiled, and then, almost too quietly to hear, he whispered, "I miss you." The crowd fell silent. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't for applause. It was real. And in that moment, everyone in the room understood something. Barry Gibb wasn't performing for the spotlight. He was performing for the ones who weren't there. Let's pause here, because this is where the story shifts. Everything before was about loss, about absence, about what might have happened in 2011, but never made it into headlines. Now, it's about something else, survival. You see, Barry Gibb didn't just lose his brothers, he lost his identity. For decades, he was part of a harmony, 3 voices, 1 sound. And then, one by one, they disappeared. First Andy, then Maurice, then Robin. And suddenly, the man known for singing "Stayin' Alive" was barely staying alive emotionally. He said it himself. "I was the last man standing," and it felt like a punishment. According to verified interviews, Barry went into a deep depression after Robin's death. He considered never performing again. He couldn't even listen to Bee Gees records. The pain was too fresh. The silence between harmonies too loud. But something pulled him back. Maybe it was the music. Maybe it was Stephen, his son, reminding him that the Gibb voice didn't have to die completely. Or maybe it was duty. Barry once said, "If I don't sing these songs, then no one will, and they'll fade." And that, more than anything, is what defines Barry's return. It wasn't for fame, or nostalgia, or legacy. It was for memory. It was to make sure Andy, Maurice, and Robin stayed with us. Each time he sings, "How can you mend a broken heart?" he's not asking the audience, he's asking the universe, and maybe himself. And each night he walks off stage without "Run to Me," that's not an omission, that's a memorial. Because Barry didn't just lose his brothers, he carries them, and he does it through music. So what really happened to Barry Gibb in 2011? Here's what we know for certain. He withdrew from the spotlight. He missed major public appearances. He went silent for nearly 2 years. Robin was dying, and Barry was grieving. But during that same period, some close followers believe he may have suffered a health scare of his own, possibly similar to the intestinal complication that took Maurice's life. That part has never been confirmed. There's no statement, no medical file, no acknowledgement from Barry, but it is believed by many who've followed his story closely, and if it's true, if Barry Gibb did face death that year, then his silence makes perfect sense. Because Barry's never been one for drama, never been one to use pain as publicity. Instead, he let the music do the talking. When he returned in 2013, he didn't explain his absence. He didn't need to. His presence, fragile, powerful, emotional, said it all. He stood on stage, thinner, quieter, older, but he stood. And that, in itself, was a kind of miracle. Because some people survive tragedy by forgetting, but Barry Gibb survives by remembering. Every lyric, every note, every pause in the set list is a quiet tribute to Andy, to Maurice, to Robin, and maybe even to himself. Because in 2011, something changed in Barry Gibb. Whether it was a diagnosis, a collapse, or just the full weight of loss finally catching up to him, he stepped away, and then he came back, not to explain, but to sing. Because that's how he keeps them all alive. If this story moved you, share it. Tell us in the comments, what Bee Gees song still hits you in the heart? Was it Words, Massachusetts, or maybe Run to Me? And if you want more stories like this one, real, emotional, sometimes painful, always unforgettable, you know what to do? Subscribe to RetroWaves. Because here, we don't just remember the music, we remember the silence in between. And sometimes, that's where the truth lives.